much better. Okay, so welcome to the 5th Annual AGGIE Leadership in Community Development Conference. My name's Jeffrey Booth. If you want to be bored to death, you can read the next slide, which I should have advanced. I'm just to make a few quick comments and introduce our speakers, and then I'm going to turn the floor over to them. So the first comment that I'll make is that last week I was at Fred and Susan Caldwell's 30th celebration, and there was a bloke there called Bob Goff, and thanks to Fred and Susan we got a copy of this book, and then Bob signed it afterwards. We got our photo taken with him. He said, "Dear Jeffrey, love God, do stuff." So I think I got the love God stuff under control, and the do stuff I'm getting close to having completed my do stuff, I think. So this is part of my do stuff exercise today. I want to tell you why I'm wearing this button. This is Fred and Susan Caldwell. How many years ago, Fred?
Oh, two.
Two? Yeah, all right. Yeah, this is honest Fred we've got here today. And so I'm there basically in the line, and Taylor Slocum, who you know is the Director of Marketing there, she's wearing this button. And I said, how come you get to wear a button like that? And she said, because I work for Caldwell's. And I said, oh, okay, rub it in, you know. She said, I'll tell you what, if I give you this button, will you wear it at the conference today? And I said, okay, you're on. So hence I'm wearing this, and part of the bet is that I've got to have my photograph taken with Fred and Susan later, and then that'll put Taylor to bed. All right, so we've got 3 really interesting speakers for you today. Now, the first thing you have to do at a conference like this is thank the VIPs. So we've got lots of VIPs in this room. In fact, anybody who's sitting in a chair is a VIP. But there are 4 people that I actually have to call out. The first one is Harold Adams. Harold's sitting over there. Bill Peel, Jim Thompson, who can't be with us today, unfortunately, and Mark Clayton. And Mark Clayton is the director of the CRS Centre. So this little emblem that you see here is the CRS Centre. And these 3 men have been absolutely incredible in terms of their support of the leadership training and function for our students. And we could not be staging a conference like this today without their very full-blooded support. So please put your hands together for those 4 guys. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time introducing the speakers. I mean, the first 3 speakers you will know really well. Tom, you know, basically his whole career has been with Heinz. Many of you have actually looked at the leadership videos that we've done on Tom. Many of you have actually sat in his lectures. You know, he's a very accomplished man. He's started out from the bottom. He worked his way all the way to the top. Tried to kill himself a couple of years ago by drinking dirty water in the Sudan, but he came back because, you know, God knocked on the door and he said, yep, mate, I'm not quite ready. I've got to go back and do a bit more yet. So you'll see the full introduction of Tom in the slide that will come up shortly. Now, the 12th man sitting in the middle there is Brad Friels. And Brad rang me earlier this week and he said, look, sorry, mate, I'm going to have to, there's something come up. I didn't ask him what it was because that's what you do with mates. He said, but what we'll do is I'll do a little film. So you're going to get to see a little film from Brad in his stead, and we'll leave that seat vacant in the true 12th man sort of tradition. And then Fred Caldwell, I didn't know anybody when I first came to Texas. The first 2 guys that I met when I took up my position here at Texas A&M were 2 of the speakers that you're going to meet shortly. There's Jonathan Brinston, who did his best to get me drunk and find out all about me. He did a pretty good job, I've got to say. And then Peter Barnhart, and then soon after that, Lisa Nichols. So those 3 people have played a really significant part in my life here at Texas A&M. And through them I met Fred and Susan. And I've got to say that both of those people have been an inspiration, particularly Susan, who At the time, my mother was going through a very difficult period, and Susan sent this little book to me, which I sent to my mum, and I reckon it's probably added maybe 2 years to Mum's life. So thank you very much, Susan. You've done a great job. So with that little introduction, I'm going to ask Tom to come to the podium. Now, Tom, this is forward back on this thing. You've got 15 minutes, and then the shepherd's crook will come out.
Howdy. Howdy. Thank y'all for coming, and we look forward to some questions that you have for Fred. So please start thinking about them. In 1972, one of the requirements of getting your degree in construction science was you had to take a course in geology. And so we would trace over to the geology department building and listen to a professor teach. And there was one question that was on every one of his tests, the first test and the last test. And that was, what is the only thing that is constant? Change. Change is the only thing that is constant. And he got his point across, because I still remember that lesson. And whether the change is in the Earth's crust, or whether it's climatic or political, change happens in the financial world, it happens in the social world, technology, change happens and is changing not just in geology, but in every aspect of life. So what you better learn to do is to embrace change, because it's going to come and it's going to happen. So embrace change is one thing I want you to think about and identify with. Now, the big question is, how do we identify the changes that are occurring? You know, we live at a day at a time, but in that day, something's changing. Now, how do I identify those changes that are occurring is kind of one of the major questions, now that you know that change is something that's constant. And some thoughts on that is to be aware, to be cognizant, to be intently aware that things are changing. So it's a mindset. Another thing that you need to do is to listen. Listen actively. I mean, why? What? Start thinking and listening to others. And then observation is another thing that you need. What are you seeing? And not just take it in and move on, but be thoughtful about your observations. Take some point of time of your day and just be cognizant that change is happening. Be aware of it. Listen, read actively, and then start observing things. And to help you illustrate some of the changes that I've gone through, I'm going to give 2 examples. So work with me a little bit with looking back at history. In my 5 decades of working, I've noticed how commercial real estate financing has changed. When I left here and went to work for Hines, the way we finance things is we would go out, we would find a tenant, they would sign a lease. With that commitment of a lease, we would then go to a life insurance company, and they would give us a 30-year mortgage or takeout. And with that takeout, then we would go to the bank and say, I want to borrow, I need construction money to build this building. And the construction lender would sit there and say, okay, Prudential Life is going to take us, that's worth the risk, and so we'll take that risk. And Prudential said, if you complete the building and move that tenant in, we will give you a permanent loan. So that was kind of how financing was done. Well, there was a lot of things that happened in the 70s. There was the oil crisis. There was a couple of them. There was, inflation. There were many things that happened. So the way finance changed a little bit in the 80s. And because of all that shift of capital to the Middle East for buying their oil, you had entities like the Kuwait Investment Authority. You had the Saudi princesses who had money. You had different huge amounts of capital, and they needed to redeploy that capital. So they would come over, and we could borrow 100% equity. They would give us 100% of the equity to build a building, and they would partner with us. Well, there was also a lot of inflation, savings and loans. You probably don't know that term, but there were lots of savings and loans. They were kind of like gas stations. They were on every corner. And they became deregulated. They needed to have some high interest loans on their balance sheet, and so they would lend you 100% of the debt. Well, cheap or free capital is not healthy for the economy, and so we commercial developers overbuilt. And the government had to step in and create the RTC. That was a bad bank that took all the bad bank loans and had to deal with them. And so you had these buildings that probably should have never been built, and they probably would have been better being hay barns rather than office buildings. And so Wall Street rides in the 90s, late 80s, early 90s, with they always looked for disintermediation in the capital markets, and so they started these commingle funds. And they would raise this capital, and they would go buy buildings 50 cents on the dollar or whatever, with the idea that they could reposition these and take advantage of this depressed market. And sure enough, commingle funds became a way in which a lot of real estate and commercial real estate was financed in the 90s. And then you had the 2000s. Well, a lot of developers kind of went under, and one of the ways, or their balance sheets wasn't strong enough, so one of the ways they went public. The REITs, there was a reemergence of the REITs. There were some earlier REITs in the 80s. And then, again, Wall Street is amazing. They created these CMBS loans, commercial-backed securities. And then they started playing with tranches. There's tranche, I'm going to lend you this building, and I can take that loan, and I can tranche it, and I can make AB loans, and I can turn around and sell that paper. And of course, well, maybe don't, but that fell apart in 2008 with the collapse of that market. So there's always capital, there's always opportunity. So what happened next? You started having the separate accounts. Instead of, I don't want to be a part of a fund, a lot of investors said, funds, you got one fund lender partner who has lots of money and doesn't want to sell these buildings. You have another one who's running short and has some obligations. And so you have these problems with these commingle funds, so they wanted to have their own investment. So you had the separate accounts. And then the banks. You can get a mini-perm now. When I started, a bank wouldn't lend you, they would lend you a construction loan, but they wouldn't lend money on a building long term. Now we can get a permanent, we can get a mini-perm. I mean, we call it mini. It's you can get 3-year with 2 1-year renewal options or extensions, so they're in the business. So financing is an example of something that has changed during my career, and understanding it and taking advantage of it. Let's get something maybe a little more simple, is life safety. When I graduated, the first building I built, our life safety system in that building was a 2-hour rated fire stair. That was what you got to build a 2-hour wall, not just an hour wall. And we had to enclose it, and that was life safety. And then, lo and behold, the code started thinking, well, the fire, you had a standpipe, so that you did have a standpipe in that firewall where the firemen could go in, hook up, and put out the fire. But, that took time. So, there's a way we can do sprinkler systems. So we had a stairwell, standpipe, and then we had a sprinkler system. Well, as you get more sophisticated and knowledgeable, you realize it's not the fire that kills people or causes a lot of confusion, it's the smoke. It's the smoke that causes the problem. And so and when you open that, people run out into the fire stairwell, you open that door, all of a sudden you have this chimney effect and it just sucks the smoke into the stairwell. Well, and so what we got to do is we got to pressurize our stairwells. We got to start putting pressure, air pressure in the stairwell so that it blows the smoke out when you open the door. And so you had that. And then, well, why wait for the sprinkler system to go off when we can get smoke detectors in there? So let's put up some smoke detectors which will let us know, and we don't have to have that much heat necessarily to set off the sprinkler heads. So that was another step forward. And then one of the things we started to realize that, pressurizing that stairwell kind of sometimes made that door hard to open or close because it had a different differential in pressure. So, and the smoke would get up to the floor above. So what we moved to was the codes and all, was what we'll do is we'll pressurize the floor above and the floor below, and we will cut off all the air to the floor of the smoke or the fire, and that way it doesn't spread. It's forced to stay on that floor. Well, when you start thinking about this, that's a lot of controlling going on. And so if you were an electrical contractor and you said, we only do high voltage wiring, and that's what we do, you would have probably missed out on the opportunity to do a lot of work. You wouldn't have created the opportunity for your people to grow into low voltage wiring. So the real question that we need to understand about change is change always leads to opportunity. There's going to be those who can't embrace change and will go down. There will be those who look forward to change and take it and make it an opportunity. So as that electrician said, I want to wire anything that's being wired, not just, higher voltage wiring. In fact, if you look at your electrical bids today, you'll be surprised how large your low voltage wiring is and how much of that the contract is. So, it always leads to opportunity, but it's identifying the right response to that change that is really also a challenge. After you identify the fact that things are changing, how do you respond to that change? Because you can sometimes respond the wrong way. And let me illustrate that by the time when the government broke up Ma Bell or AT&T in the Bell systems. They provided the hardwire through your building. Well, deregulation happened. All of a sudden you had that wire in your building. It was your wire. And you know what? We can buy switchgear so that we control the phone system in our building. And this is changing because of the breakup of the energy. We ought to get in the phone business. And we have, Fred and I can think of a number of developers that jumped into the phone business. There was Lincoln Property Telephone Company, and I was going to make part of the profit off of that phone system, my tenants using the phone in my building. And they failed. There's not one developer who is in the phone business today. So, that says change is out there. There's opportunities, but how you respond to that change in responding correctly is one of the challenges. So let's go back and look at truth. Change is constant, and change does create opportunity. So what does that mean? What does that mean to you in this audience? Learning and education is constant. You've got to learn to love. I mean, you got to do that too. But learn, but love learning. Love learning. Be curious. be curious enough to want to know why and what's changing, what's behind that, and what's new. And so if you don't like learning, you need to change your attitude and love to learn. Love to answer that curiosity. But some things and some truths don't change. Not everything is always changing, as I had said earlier. In your career, in your life, you will be working with people or for people, or you'll try to accomplish something through people. That is a fact. So, people skills or emotional intelligence is maybe a buzzword, it is as important as intellectual intelligence or even personal drive. You've got to work with people. You're going to have to. That may not be your strong suit, but you will have to work with them or for them or through them to try to get something accomplished. So, first lesson is you're going to have to learn to collaborate. You're going to have to learn to work with somebody that's even in a different profession than you. You may be a general contractor and all you want to do is put up studs, or you may be an architect and all you want to do is, design. Well, at some point you're going to have to implement that design. You're going to have somebody create the model for that design. Now, all of a sudden your computer ain't going to work and you're going to have to work with that tech guy to come get your computer back up. You are going to have to work with people and through people to get anything accomplished. So you're going to have to learn to collaborate with people. And to do that, you have to be able to communicate. Communication is key. And I have in there in parentheses that 2/3 of communication is listening and 1/3 is maybe speaking. Where did I come up with that ratio? I didn't, God did. He gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. That's the math. That's the simple, by design. So communication is listening. If you're married or newly married, it needs to be a lot more listening. I was talking, I've learned that. But in balance, it's 2/3, 1/3. Okay, the next thing you need to do is learn to be creative. Think outside the box. Part of curiosity is learning to be creative. And that doesn't mean you have to be the best designer in your class or in your profession. But, you observe things, you see things, and what do you do with it? What can you do to improve or be better with what you're thinking? So learn to be creative is part of what you're going to have to do when you work with people. And really, it comes down to genuinely care about people. Genuinely care about people. And what I mean, I don't care if it is the CEO of a company, he's a human being. I don't care if it's that superintendent in the job who loves to hunt and fish. Care about him. Understand where he likes to hunt and where he likes to fish. Get to know him. If it's that laborer on the job, that person is a human. That person is God created and has something, some talent, some gift that you don't have, that you can learn from. And the only way is you're going to have to learn to care about people. It can't be just a routine mechanical thing, because people are smart, they'll see through it. You have to truly care about a person. So that brings me to my next truth. Treat other people the way you would want to be treated. If you were that laborer, how would you want that owner or that architect coming on the job to treat you? Think about it from their standpoint. And that can govern so much. I mean, so many rules come up to that one statement, treat others, and learning that will teach us not to lie. That will teach us not to take something from somebody else that's theirs. That will control the way you relate to the opposite sex. That will control the way that you, your own passion and desires. I want that, and I'll get it at all cost. Greed. If you say, would I want to be treated that way? So learn that truth. Learn it well. And that truth and how you embrace it and how you deal with it leads to defining your character and your reputation. And I can tell you, your next job is dependent upon your character and your reputation. You're doing it for peace of mind, you're doing it for the right thing to do, but you're also doing it because you're building your reputation. What kind of employee is he? What kind of employer are you? What kind of boss are you? How good are you at pushing a broom? It defines you. So, what does all this mean? What do I want to leave with you? The thing that I want to leave to the professors and the staff here is you've got to teach people how to think. They need the basic facts to reason with, but you've got to teach them, after they have those basic facts, how to think through things, because change will happen, and what you're teaching them will be different in 10 years. So teach them to think. The next thing is you need to teach them leadership. I think the way the school has designed, the college has defined leadership. Look at those characters. Learn people skills. Learn leadership, because you're going to need it. Whether all you want to do is start your own contractor firm, whether you want to just be a designer, you will be working with people, so learn those leadership skills. And I'm thankful for the college for recognizing that and trying to teach all that. And then to the professors, I would say, be a mentor. Be a mentor to your students. Think about the teachers, the professors who are always enjoyed by the students. They are the ones who take the time to care about their students and mentor them and help them. Now, not all of y'all are professors or staff. So what is it I'm trying to tell you as students? What message would I like to leave you? First thing is learn. Learn first the use of the basic skills, the basic tools that they're giving you in school, in your classes, and figure out how you're going to use that. You've got to have the facts to start, but learn to think, learn to reason. Second thing, I can't emphasize enough, you're here to learn people skills. You learn to that. And then I encourage you to be curious, always interested in learning, and then practice leadership yourself. Practice caring for others. And you know, really, it's pretty simple. It's really building and adding to the Aggie tradition of being true to each other, because that's what Aggies do. We care about each other. We're different because we care, because that is a fellow Aggie. And all this college is doing and all your professors are doing is trying to perpetuate the tradition of Texas A&M. Thank you for letting me spend some time with you.
So Brad Friels, unfortunately, he rang me earlier this week and he said, look, mate, unfortunately, I'm going to have to bail, but I have prepared a little film for you. He did prepare a film. It was a little too short, and he said too many nice things about me, so I had to basically clean it up a bit.
So it was interesting how
Midway was built. And I'll say this about Brad. He's had one of the most significant impacts in my life of any person. And, sorry. What I would tell you is, don't look for a job, but look for mentors. That's probably the most important thing you can do early in your career, especially. And you know, we've been fortunate. We're friends. We're partners. He will always be a mentor, and I know the rest of the team feels that way. But
Midway as a company is focused around a purpose, and that purpose is to build enduring investments in remarkable places that enrich people's lives.
Whatever you build will be there for years and years and affect a lot of people's lives. And so our desire is to do things well and enhance the property and everything that we touch.
It's not about building buildings and leasing them up and then making a profit off of it.
I think Midway really instills that in all the employees.
Bringing a new project to a community, and that project just isn't a bunch of inanimate buildings, but that project becomes the heart and soul of a community.
So we've assembled a group of people that together create great places that will survive us as a group, places that will be memorable for the people that go there.
I think generally the atmosphere is one of fun and family and collaboration.
We have a really fun office, and there's always this great energy and vibe every day when you come in. They really instill this sense of trust in their employees.
I think we've attracted people that are self-starters, that are motivated, that have a desire to do great things.
Midway is my second family. They give young professionals the opportunity to take leadership roles.
This atmosphere is open, it's honest, and I think we're all encouraged to promote Midway with our own different strengths and unique talents that we have.
They want each of their employees to succeed, not only on a professional level, but personally as well. Midway gives 12 days a year for each of their employees to volunteer, and that really just brings perspective.
For all of the younger folks who maybe haven't done a lot of volunteering, it promotes that so that they're going to go out and volunteer on their own.
Sharing the values that you have with the leadership of the company is very important. When you trust the people who run the company and the way they do it and what they provide for you and the people that they surround you with, it reinforces that loyalty.
And as we grow, one of the things we're very conscious of is how do we maintain the culture, because that's the foundation upon which the company's built. I think everybody has to feel a common purpose, and you come to work every day and you actually make a difference. You're not just doing a job.
Good morning. Welcome to the 5th Annual AGGIE Leadership and Community Development Conference 2020, the year of perfect vision, according to Jeffrey. Hey, my name is Brad Friels. I'm with Midway out of Houston, Texas. And I wasn't able to be with y'all today, and I regret that, but Jeffrey asked me to make a few comments for y'all, which I'm more than happy to do. I'm not sure I'm going to embark any real knowledge on you in this short time, but I just want to make one observation. Jeffrey said to talk a little bit about what I think makes a leader and what I think makes people successful. And, I've been doing this a long time, and candidly, I've seen a lot of people come and go at Midway. And I can tell you as just a general point, people that come in that want to have a career do really, really well with us. People that come in that just are looking for a job, they come and go. And what I distill that down to, honestly, is passion. In anything in life that you do that's worthwhile, the people I see that are successful have passion. They do things with passion. They get up, they're excited about it. They work hard, they think about it. And it's in business, but it's also in academics. Look at a guy like Jeffrey Booth. that man is passionate. If there's anybody passionate about what he's doing in academics, it's Jeffrey. And I take so much pride in knowing him and insights from him and his mannerisms. You know, you might not realize it today, but some days you look back on who professors really had an impact on your life. I think Jeffrey's going to come to the top of that heap. But Jeffrey, again, I apologize for not being able to be there. Y'all have a great lineup. Fred and Tom are going to do outstanding as the old guys in the group. Peter and Jonathan, I know well, are going to make some great remarks on the up-and-comers and guys that are actually doing the work. You know, I wish I could be there with you all day, but I just hope y'all have a great day and look forward to seeing y'all all soon. Thank you.
Brad has sent me 2 emails this morning apologising for not being here. So he's one of the genuine folk, and in fact all 9 people that we selected here today are probably the most genuine people you'll come across in the real estate industry. So that brings us to Fred Caldwell. So please give a round of applause for Fred Caldwell.
Thank you, Jeffrey, and I just second what Brad said in the video. Your passion and care for your students just has set the course here for what we're all involved in, and Jeffrey, we're just so thankful for you. And Tom, I appreciate what you said about opportunity and change in this business, and the two are inextricably linked. So I think you hit it dead on. And you know, how many of you are students here? Raise your hand if you're a student here. Great. How many of you work on teams together in grad school? Raise your hand if you work on teams with a partner. So Brad, that you just saw in that video, Brad and I spent many a night here at A&M all night long working on graduate programs, graduate school stuff that we had to turn in, case assignments. This is back before the personal computer, if you can imagine, and we would, I remember one finance course in particular that Brad and I would stay up all night long, and we would work on case studies we had to turn in. You did it with a calculator, and you'd write it all out, and the professor, I'll never forget this guy, neither will Brad, the guy's named Dr. Smith. He would flip a coin if you would turn a paper in or not. If it came out heads, you turned it in. If it came in tails, you didn't turn it in. 60% of your grade depended on case studies, a summer course, by the way, summer school. So Brad and I would stay up all night long, and we would do these deals. We'd flip the deal. It came up tails. Once, we did it again. It came up tails again. So there's only like 8 of them that you turn in. And through number 6, when number 6 came up tails, we had a guy from Boston that stormed that it was one of these auditorium deals and ran and tried to kill the professor. Seriously, in our graduate program, and I always remember that. And I've always remembered the probability of flipping a coin is 50-50, you know, but it's like storms in Houston. A 1,000-year storm can occur every 3 years, and we've learned that. So Brad and I spent a lot of time together. I love Brad Frills. He's my dear, dear friend, and I'm so proud of Brad, Jonathan, and everything you guys have done at Midway. Just great to see. And Brad, as Jonathan said, a great mentor, friend, and loves people. And as Tom said, this business is so much about people. You will always be doing business with people and accomplishing vision, objectives, and goals through people. There's just some stuff on us. I'm going to flip through there. Okay, here's what I want to talk to you about. So, how many of you saw the state of the... So, now let me just... I got to give a little... disclaimer here, because Jeffrey didn't know what I'm going to talk on. So, but he said, hey, you can talk about what you want to talk about. So I'm going to talk about something like at 30,000 feet, and I'll drop down to real estate in a minute, but you're all learning great real estate stuff. So I'm going to talk a little bit kind of about where we are. How many of you saw the State of the Union address? Some of you. I don't know about you, but I have great concerns about our country. So I'm going to start there, because the formation of the U.S. is really the basis of the platform that we get to operate in as real estate developers, investors. and operate in this industry. So I have great concerns about where we are as a country, because I believe if things don't kind of begin to change, we've got real problems ahead for us in terms of opportunity for your generation coming up. And so I want particularly you students to understand the opportunity that you have to make a difference. And I read something this last summer that really struck with me. It's called the Golden Triangle of Freedom that a guy named Os Guinness came up with. And I believe it really speaks to why we are where we are as a country, why we are so racially divided, why we are so divided on politics and a number of other issues. And there's three variables here: freedom, virtue, and faith, and they're inextricably linked. If you think about our Constitution, the founding of this country was based on this was an experiment. The United States was an experiment, and the experiment was that we'd be a self-governed people. To be a self-governed people means that we have to be altruistic. It means we have to care about other people to be a self-governed people. And implicit in that is that with that freedom comes this idea that we would be people of virtue, the left-hand side of this triangle. But to be people of virtue, we have to have a greater call in our lives, because none of us are virtuous apart from a faith in God. And so it ties these three things together. And I think it gives a great picture where we are as a country. You see, we are a country of declining virtue. That one only need to look at the media. One only need to look at the Super Bowl halftime and say we are a country of declining virtue, and we're the country of declining virtue because we are a country of declining faith. And so why do I talk to you about that? You just say, I didn't come to church. I wanted to come to a real estate conference. The reason I tell you this is because of this. I think that Texas A&M is an absolutely outpost and a rock in an island for producing students with virtue. You're in a unique institution. I don't know if you know that. I don't think I ever appreciated that when I was here. But Texas A&M is in the business of producing people with virtue. And our country so desperately needs you, all of you, to be leaders. Because this thing is going quickly astray. And so when you look at these values of respect and excellence and leadership and loyalty, integrity, and selfless service, those are the virtues and values that are so desperately needed in our country, and they're needed in our real estate industry. At our company, we have this real simple vision statement that came out, and Peter and I were talking about this today, 2003, we think. We did an offsite, and really this thing just kind of popped out. I mean, it wasn't anybody, I didn't walk in and say, hey, I think this is a great idea. We had one of these offsite meetings with our leadership team, and out came this statement. We honor God, which kind of sounds maybe funny for a corporate vision statement, but we said is, hey, we're here for a greater purpose besides making a buck. And I know a lot of you may be getting in the real estate business and say, I want to get in it so I can make a lot of money. And I can tell you, I understand that. I understand that mindset, because you're at a point in life when making money is really important. But I'll tell you, there's a greater purpose in this business. And we kind of said, hey, it's about stewarding, being great stewards. This means being a really good manager of what you're given. And that means people. It means finances. It means the land that you're given to develop. It means being careful about preservation of trees and the nature that you're given. All those kind of things matter. They matter to us. That we're here about people, cultivating relationships. Finally, it's about building extraordinary places that enrich lives. Kind of similar to, Jonathan, what you guys came up with. Kind of similar. We end up on the same kind of page. I'll tell you, we choose those words carefully, but the word extraordinary to us means, by definition, extraordinary means other than ordinary. Ordinary is what I can get when I go down the street. We want to build places that are uniquely different that you cannot get by walking down the street to another competitive place. So extraordinary requires a level of effort that's higher than ordinary. So if you're going to be extraordinary at anything, you have to put in extraordinary input. To get extraordinary output, you have to put extraordinary input in. And so we always say extraordinary really costs. It costs financially, it costs emotionally, it costs passion and effort to get there. All of you, I suspect, want to be extraordinary in your careers. You're extraordinary because you're in two of the best graduate programs in the country. Just by that, it tells you that you are all, as students, extraordinary, and you have extraordinary people that are teaching you. that same level of effort that you have now has to continue into your careers and into your life to have extraordinary results. And ultimately, the result that we're looking for are lives that are made better because they interacted with one of our developments. That's our goal. Or they interacted with our people. You always kind of have this litmus. I say, are the people better off because they met us or not? Whatever it is. It's a pretty good little rule to say. Is somebody better off because I interacted with their life or not? It's a little simple metric. So implicit in this idea of extraordinary is the idea of excellence. And excellence, I've got kind of 5 things to talk to you about in terms of achieving excellence. First, excellence requires leadership. If the leader of a group is not committed to excellence in every area of what you're trying to achieve, then you won't achieve it. So the leader has to be kind of focused on excellence in every aspect. And then secondly, that there's unity. So part of a leader's goal is to make sure you have unity of a group. You ever been on a team that has disunity? Do you see disunity in our country right now? Oh my gosh. Yeah? I mean, right now, we need to unify people. That's a leadership thing. We need to bring people together. I have a little rule. I say we versus I. I'm big on this. It's kind of an old sports thing. But what I say is this. Whenever I say we will get something done, I always tell anybody when we're trying to get stuff done, if I hear a we, I say, well, it's not going to get done. You see, we does not do anything. I gets it done, and I means that I will own the task, the responsibility, and I will put my name on it. And in fact, I'll give it time and a day when it'll get done. But we takes the accountability. We takes the responsibility. So who got that done? Who built that phenomenal project? Oh my gosh, we did. We have a great team. We have great people. Who's going to make sure that those sidewalks get poured by next month? I'll get that done. I'll lead the team that gets that done. We versus I. So in your careers, be careful of the word we. And be the person who'll say I. How many of you like doing that? Does anybody like doing that, or do you kind of like shorthand it? Like, yeah, you know, because if I say I, that means I'm going to work late. That means I got to work weekends. It means I've got to sacrifice to be the lead person to take the accountability. But it's really an important part. Get people in the right lanes. You know, a lot of companies, we use various assessments and whatnot. Understand who you are. I couldn't encourage you enough. If you haven't ever taken any of the behavioral assessments like DISC or any of the various assessments that are out there, find out who you are and how you're wired, how God made you. And if you can get in that lane that leverages your behaviors, you will always be swimming with the current. Can't express that enough. When we interview people, we're always trying to figure out, who are you? I always tell people when they come interview our company, look, we just want to help you find the right lane, whether it's here or somewhere else. So understanding who you are, how you're wired, and getting in the right lane. I've met so many people that at the age of 60 wish they would have done something else. Anybody relate to that? You probably want to raise your hands on that. But you know, I'm so thankful I get to do something I enjoy doing because I'm in a lane that works for me. And so figuring out your lane in life, it comes really down to who am I, how am I wired, and what's going to make me kind of swim really well. If you can do that, I think you find great joy in what you do. Quality meetings really matter. Anybody been in boring meetings? Boring meetings? I hate boring meetings. Oh my gosh, you know. Boring meetings are no fun. You know? I hate meetings where everybody agrees. Oh my gosh, what do you think, Bobby? Oh yeah, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. Mary, oh, that's a great idea. Larry, oh, that's super, you know, but really they're thinking that's the dumbest idea ever. Right? You ever been in a meeting like that? You're like, I hate this. You know, that's really never going to work. You know whose responsibility it is, though? It's the leader of the meeting to find out what Mary, Larry, Jerry, Susie, whoever really thinks and get it on the table. Those are effective meetings. The worst meetings ever, everybody agrees. Oh my gosh, yeah, we all agree. So here's a quick list. So what you put in your mind really matters every day. Your mind, our minds, drive our behaviors. So I made a quick book list, and we did this the other day, and just some things. This is a shorter one. I got a longer one. But this is stuff that we've read, I've read, Peter's read, E's read, about that have driven a lot of what we do in our business. One is I always start with the Bible. I read it every morning. But even if you don't believe in God, or you just think, well, the Bible's just good liturgy. If you think, or literature, if you think that, but go read Psalms, Proverbs, and James. Just start reading that daily. It's just great wisdom for daily living. Built to Last was, I thought, the best business book ever read. Read it in the 80s. We started our company. We're going to build it around Built to Last, which is all about culture, Jim Collins. And then he came out with another book called Good to Great. That came out and said, no, this is the best business book ever written. And we began building our company around Good to Great. Blue Ocean Strategy, everybody read. By the way, who's read Good to Great? Man, I'll tell you, and I know those of you that are in school right now, you're pressed with a lot of reading. If I had to recommend one off this list to start with, go buy Good to Great or download it on your iPad or whatever and read Good to Great. It is absolutely outstanding. Blue Ocean Strategy, 2 Harvard profs, super book on how to create creative. Tom talked about being creative. Blue Ocean Strategy is all about how to be creative in business. Death by Meeting gets into how to have great meetings. Power of a Humble Life and a Life of Excellence by Simmons are outstanding reads. How to Win Friends. Who's read that? How to Win Friends and Influence. Awesome. If you haven't read that book, that's like you got to read that book. I tell you, when I got out of grad school at A&M, I could run it seemed like I just really was competent in running spreadsheets and running numbers and whatnot, just the way my brain worked. That was real comfortable. You know what I was terrible at? People. I was horrible at that. So I really had that, when I got out in the business world, really had to understand how to relate better with people. And for a lot of you, you're going to be like me. And maybe you're very analytical, but short on people skills, and you'll find very quickly in business, you've got to be strong in both. And so I really encourage you to read that book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Next Generation Leader by Andy Stanley's fantastic read on how to develop leaders. Love Does. Right here, Bob Goff, my new friend, Jeffrey's new friend. He's got several books, Everybody Always and Love Does, both New York Times bestsellers. Encourage you to read it. Mere Christianity, I'd encourage you to read that book just because C.S. Lewis is probably one of the brightest minds of our time. Outstanding read. It will stretch your head in a way that your head's probably not ever been stretched. Great new book out, Eric Metaxas, If You Can Keep It, which speaks to where we are as a country. He speaks to this freedom triangle that I referenced. I would encourage you, if you live in this country, to read that book because it makes a lot of sense in terms of how our country was formed, the intent of the writers of our Constitution, who were, by the way, incredibly faithful people, by and far, and the intent of the Constitution versus where we are today with the Constitution. So I am so proud of all of you. I know Peter is coming up here in a minute, and E, 2 of our team members. I'm so proud of them. Peter is my partner, my right-hand guy. Love Peter. Our company wouldn't be where it is today if it were not for Peter Barnhart. And E, Chu, who's here, E is from China, and E, we're praying for your friends and family and relatives in China. I know it's a very challenging time, but E has done a phenomenal job for us. And we have a lot of our other Caldwell folks here, so I'm thankful for our team. We have great folks that have become part of our team. And, again, it's all about the people you get to work with every day. So thank you.
So you'll learn when you put one of these things together, you've got to switch to vaudeville every now and again. So at this stage, we were going to have 10 minutes of Q&A. We have burnt completely through that, so we're not going to have Q&A. But what we are going to have is that if you've got a question that you feel you want to ask of any of the 3 speakers in the first panel, second panel, third panel, then email it to me. It's very easy. My email is gbooth, Gbooth, at tamu.edu. If you want to text it to me, my cell phone number is 979-393-8111. If you forget that cell phone number, ask any dog on any street corner and he'll bark it at you, right? So we're going to have a very short break here as we allow these speakers to leave the rostrum, and the current CEOs will come up and take their place. So round of applause for Tom and for... Thanks, Mark.